And I heard you on Doug Henwood's show talking about Trump as a fascist, or the discourse around that. And that's something that I think is very fraught for a lot of people.
Right.
You are a professor of both history and of jurisprudence. So from a historical perspective and also from a jurisprudential perspective, how do you see him as an aberration and a continuation? Where does he fall in those two categories?
It's a great question. I think it's caused a lot of controversy and dispute on the left. And so what I have to say will not please everyone. I think that there are some clear ways in which Trump is like an offensive novelty, but he's in office because of policy dating back decades as a result of a protest vote against things like endless war and economic neoliberalism. And so we're on the hook for Trump's ascendancy in this country. Old policies, the risk is that Biden actually it epitomizes those old choices rather than representing a break from them. And so the risk is that those old choices will just get restored and repeated. And, I've coined this so far unpopular, term Trump washing to refer to, the attitude of a lot of people, especially those who made all of those failed policies, to basically say, Trump's an aberration, get rid of him and things will be hunky dory. But, if you believe that Trump's a symptom, then, the choice seems to be between, whether we restore the disease or, keep these really flagrant symptoms. As to fascism, it seems undoubted.
Authoritarianism or
authoritarianism, of which fascism is, I guess, one kind. He has instincts in that direction. I think that the true story of his presidency is that he's been weak. He's been strong when one of two things has occurred. Either he's pursued the standard Republican program of, tax cuts for the rich and socially conservative judges for the, religious and other morally conservative, or he's operated in zones where we've accreted so much power to the presidency over generations, like foreign affairs and immigration. So if we hate those things, we should check ourselves, because we didn't just choose policies that led to Trump, but we made the office of the presidency that he's inhabited. And yet many of the things he's tried to do have been checked. He sent, for a photo op with a Bible, some troops into the square in Washington. And amazingly, you then saw the greatest acts of insubordination since the Korean War, when the Secretary of Defense said he'd never, deploy troops for crowd control. And, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs outright apologized for having been part of it. We can argue about other cases. Portland is an atrocity, but it lasted briefly and he was stopped and he shifted policy. In so many instances, he has lost in the court serially, not always as, to the extent we'd like. So, this is not Benito Mussolini or Adolf Hitler. Maybe there's fascism in all of us. We hurt others, who are different. And that's a long American tradition that doesn't require us to look abroad or to Europe or, to invoke 1933 or Adolf Hitler. So, my basic worry is that the labels distract us. And in particular, they're about like getting us off the hook when we ought to, check ourselves and figure out how, in a way, we made this situation possible. Trump is us. And, I just don't think it's accurate or helpful to say we're in a fascist, country right now. Least of all, if we're trying to convince those gettable voters in November I mean, I don't want to be called a fascist if I'm on the fence.
Right.
Rather, I want my interests acknowledged. And, that has to do with, the shortcomings of elite rule, neoliberalism, endless war, the kinds of things that have made the states in which Trump won, for all of their, endemic American racism, righteously angry about, the policies that have lasted most of our lives.
Yeah.